Companies can't be saved. Hi, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. Well, today in this episode we talk about these two words, companies and saved. Well, since I'm the Christian Economist, let's first look at saved. When you hear that from a Christian, you usually think in terms of salvation, right? So who's going to heaven and who's going to hell? Say, companies can't go to heaven nor hell. Only individuals can. And that's my subject today. How do we put our concentration on companies or individuals? And as Christians, we believe it makes no difference which organization you belong to, meaning church. It makes no difference who your parents were or who your friends are. Salvation is based on an individual decision to accept Christ as your personal Savior. And I want to go to that individual level of analysis today when we talk about what's happening in the coronavirus crisis and the stimulus plan that has been put in place to save companies. So you've got these terms. Can companies be saved? And my answer is no, they cannot be saved, because I think we're looking at the wrong level of analysis. First looks back at the first book I wrote was called Corporate Cults, way back in 2000. And in that one, I quoted these guys named Jensen and Meckling, who are organizational theorists. And they said, organizations don't exist. Okay, it's a little bit wonky, a little bit academic, but they're exactly right. Organizations are merely a collection of individuals who come together to, by the way, serve others, which I'll get to in just a little bit. So organizations exist to serve those people who they're selling products and services to. And so Jensen and Meckling are right. Organizations don't exist. And in a religious view, we think this also. Only individuals can accept the invitation of Christ. So in corporate cults, that's what I said. Only organizations, they exist only to serve others. So they don't make decisions. Organizations can't make decisions. Individuals within them make decisions. And so I'm prompted for today's episode by a headline in the Wall Street Journal, April 26, How Fed Intervention Saved Carnival. Of course, they're talking about the Federal Reserve Bank and how they're lowering interest rates and offering a salvation, good phrase for us Christians, salvation offer to companies to keep them out of bankruptcy. Here's the second paragraph of the article. Quote, the company, Carnival, virtually shut down by the coronavirus outbreak, needed billions of dollars fast. With financial markets frozen, executives were forced to consider a high-interest loan from a band of hedge funds who called themselves the Consortium. The group included Apollo Management Group, Elliott Management Corp., and other distressed debt investors that sometimes take over companies they lend to, people familiar with the matter said. End quote from the Wall Street Journal, article by Matt Wirtz, April 26, 2020. That's my subject today, which is, can you save companies? Because this article says that the Fed saved Carnival. Look, okay, first about the cruise line industry, just a little bit. In strategy, the other course I teach at the university, we talk a lot about the rule of three, meaning there's three corporations who command almost every industry. 3 soft drinks, 3 beers, 3 credit cards. This goes on and on. This is true in the cruise industry also. Carnival owns Princess, Holland America, Costa, P&O, they own Cunard, they own Seabourn, and they own AIDA. Royal Caribbean is the second largest. It owns the brands Celebrity, Pullman Tour, Azamara, and CDF of France. Norwegian Cruise Lines owns Oceania and Regent Seven Seas. These 3 control the industry. It's the rule of 3. So when the article says Carnival, you may be thinking just about Carnival Cruise Lines. Carnival owns these other 7 brands, and these other companies do as well. After those 3 major companies, you have some small ones like MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company, who does some cruises, Disney, you have a few other very small ones, but these 3 control the industry. So when they say Carnival, they mean the Carnival Corporation that employs all these people and provides all these cruises. Okay, so did the Federal Reserve Bank, save Carnival? The article goes on to explain that Carnival needed money right away. They had made a tentative deal with these raiders, if you want to call them that, to borrow money at 15%, and it could be converted to stock. Well, that's what happens with these companies. See, these raiders, as we might call them, they save up money. Then when difficult times like this come, they say, well, we'll give you the money, but it's a high interest rate, and we may be able to convert it to stock and take over your company. That sounds bad because when you think of corporate raiders, you've got in mind people like Michael Douglas playing Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, or Danny DeVito in Other People's Money. These are corporate raiders. I want to try to change your opinion about that. See, these guys, during the last few years, when most of us, like you and me, we were out investing in the stock market and making, 15 or 20% a year, they didn't do that. It was the opportunity cost for them to save this money in cash so that when something like this happened, they could step in and make more money. But everybody looks past what these guys have done in the last few years. They have passed up that opportunity cost, right? So they have saved up their money. Listen, this has happened before. In the 2008 recession, the federal government bailed out the 3 auto companies. Now, interesting, Chrysler and General Motors needed the money. Ford did not. So you've got a company, rule of 3 again. Ford says, we don't really need the money. And so Ford, for performing well leading up to the recession, was punished. General Motors and Chrysler were rewarded for their bad behavior. Do you see why this is called moral hazard? I mean, it's because moral hazard, when you're not responsible for the outcome, you take greater risks. So you're saying to these guys at Elliott Management and Apollo and so forth, these corporate raiders, in the future, don't do this. Don't save up money because you're not going to be rewarded for your saving. I want to change your mind about corporate raiders. They are there to take over the company when the current managers fail. Now, you're welcome to think these current managers, it wasn't their responsibility. It was their responsibility. They took over the management of the organization, and my conclusion in just a few minutes is going to be, you didn't bail out Carnival. You bailed out the owners and the managers. Just think about this. Full disclosure here, by the way. I have a family member who works for Princess, and we've been on many Princess cruises. They've made our life so much better. But think about this. In the early days of this crisis, I even said to my family member, look, they may try to sell off your division to get the finances to make it through this crisis. As it turns out, they could not have done that fast enough anyway. But my point to him was, if there's demand, the new owners will need people to run the company. See, this is what people often miss. They think we've saved Carnival. No, as long as there's demand for cruises, there will be cruises. It may not be called Carnival. It may not be owned by this current group of owners. It may not be managed by this current management group. But if there's demand, it will exist. Look, after the last recession of 2008, when they bailed out these companies, Joe Biden in the 2012, he was vice president at the time, in the 2012 campaign for he and Barack Obama to be reelected, he had this great quote, bin Laden is dead and GM is alive, end quote. We'll leave the bin Laden part for now. His point was GM is alive because of what the government did under the Obama administration with Biden as vice president. True, it was alive, but think about what I've just been saying to you. GM supplies cars. As long as there's demand, somebody's going to supply them. I mean, it makes no difference whether it's General Motors or if somebody like Toyota or Kia steps in and buys them. They're still making cars to meet a demand. And see, there are also economists who think we have to make things in the United States. Donald Trump is one of them, by the way, and he's wrong. We do not have to make cars in the United States. As long as we demand them and they get supplied, everything will work out just fine. But this is what Joe Biden was trying to say in 2012. The government saved General Motors. You can't save companies. All they did was save the stockholders and the current managers. They didn't change the demand. People were going to demand cars. And if people demand cruises in the future, there will be something like Carnival to do that. Now, you're welcome to look back at one of my other episodes. It's number 11, called Recessions Are Good. Well, the point I made in Recessions Are Good is that it punishes people who don't do well. Back in that example of 2008, Ford had done well, Chrysler and GM had done badly. They should have been punished in that recession. In this one, if Carnival is behaving badly, their managers and owners should be punished, but they're not being punished. This causes moral hazard, right? You're not saving the company. You're saving the managers and the owners who have failed to align the organization with its current environment. Now, that's the catchphrase that I use in my strategy class. See, we are always trying to figure out, how do we align ourselves with the future environment? If Carnival and Royal Caribbean and Norwegian, the three major cruise companies, if they have aligned themselves well with this future environment, even though you couldn't predict it, by the way, even though you couldn't predict it. But do you see how you've got these three again? You're rewarding some of them, you're punishing others. Those who prepared best should succeed. Those who did not prepare should fail and should be fired. I don't want to spend too much time on sports today, but baseball managers get fired. Why? Because their team doesn't perform. Managers of companies should be fired when they don't perform, even when there's unusual circumstances like this, right? Look, there's also this concept we've talked a lot about, love your neighbor, and it's episode number 18 if you want to look back at that one. And we love our neighbor by providing products and services they demand. So I tell my students, look, if you graduate from Dallas Baptist University and you got an offer for $70,000 in banking, that'd be a nice offer for a student just out of college, wouldn't it? $70,000 in banking and $50,000 for manufacturing. You should take the banking job, because that indicates you will love your neighbors more because you are providing greater products and services as measured by the money that's being paid to you. This is what we do when we love our neighbor. There is this ethical question, of course. The person who made the decision should pay for it. Now, if government forced these companies to stop, like they did restaurants and so forth, then perhaps you have some point to make that it would be an ethical argument that the government should bail them out. I'm just trying to make the point. They're not bailing out the company. The headline is wrong. Fed intervention did not save Carnival. They saved Carnival's owners and managers, not the company. And the specialization. Look, 1 Corinthians 12:12 said, there is one body, but it has many parts. But all its many parts make up one body. Well, they go on in that scripture to talk about, can the hand say, I don't need the eye? Can the eye say, I don't need the foot, etc., etc.? Yet what this is talking about in Corinthians is what Adam Smith called specialization in his 1776 book, The Wealth of Nations. By the way, he's on the back of the 20-pound note in the UK. There they call it division of labor. But the point to be made here is, so if General Motors in 2008 is not providing cars well, somebody else should do it. If Carnival in 2020 is not providing cruises well, somebody else should do it. Look, if there's demand, somebody will provide it. We shouldn't care as economists who provides it. I mean, currently it seems to me that computers are made quite well by the Taiwanese. I've had many students from Taiwan who've worked on those companies. Cars are made by the South Koreans quite well. Shoes are made by the Vietnamese. This goes back to this 1 Corinthians 12:12. One body, many parts. Who should provide the cruises? Who should provide the cars? It makes no difference. As long as they serve their customer well and love their neighbor. There's the point, see? That is one of my major concerns, actually, about the coronavirus crisis and the response to it, is that it will de-globalize the world. That will make all of us poor. And I hope that does not happen. Yeah, that's my point today, you guys. Companies can't be saved because companies don't exist. Individuals within the companies, those are the ones who exist. What is demanded will be supplied. Well, I'm the Christian economist, Dave Arnott, where our slogan is, fear God, tell the truth, earn a profit. See you next time.